Go look at your nonstick pan right now. Flip it over, or check the box if you still have it. There's a good chance you will find two words printed on it. PFOA-Free. Clean, reassuring letters, often right next to a little leaf icon, or the word natural. I want you to know exactly what that label is telling you, because it is not what most people think. PFOA is one specific chemical. Major manufacturers phased it out between the mid-2000s and 2015, under pressure from the Environmental Protection Agency. So when a pan says PFOA-free in 2026, it is making a claim about a chemical that has been largely absent from cookware for roughly a decade. That claim is true. It is also, in a very specific sense, beside the point. Here is what that label does not tell you. It does not tell you whether the pan contains PTFE. PTFE is the substance you almost certainly know by its brand name, Teflon, and PTFE belongs to the same chemical family as PFOA. That family is called PFAS. You may have heard them called forever chemicals because of how long they persist. So a pan can be 100% accurately labeled PFOA-free and still be coated edge to edge in a different member of the exact same chemical family. I am going to show you why this happens. I will show you what a major 2022 Consumer Reports investigation found when they tested pans carrying these reassuring labels. And I will give you a specific test you can run on your own cookware right now to find out which category your pan falls into. This is not about throwing out your kitchen. It is about reading a label the way it was written, not the way it was designed to be read. Here is the shape of this video. First, what PFAS actually is as a chemical category, and why PFOA is only one small piece of a family of more than 10,000 compounds. Second, why PFOA-free became the industry's go-to reassurance phrase and what it leaves out. Third, what happened when Consumer Reports tested cookware for PFAS directly rather than trusting the label. Fourth, the wave of state-level bans moving through Minnesota, Colorado, Maine, and several other states right now in 2026. And what that pattern tells you about how seriously this is being taken outside of marketing departments. And fifth, the specific check you can run on cookware you already own, plus what materials genuinely avoid this issue rather than just rebranding it. I look at the science and the labeling behind everyday household materials. I try to explain clearly what a claim on a package does and does not establish. I am not a physician. Nothing in this video is medical advice. This topic sits as much in the territory of consumer language as it does in toxicology. And a technically true label that leads to a false impression is its own kind of problem. It is separate from whatever the underlying chemistry turns out to mean for health. PFAS stands for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. It is not one chemical, it is a category. And depending on how broadly you define it, that category contains over 10,000 distinct compounds. They share a common structural feature, a chain of carbon atoms bonded to fluorine atoms. That bond is one of the strongest in organic chemistry. That strength is exactly why these chemicals are useful for nonstick coatings. It is also why they resist breaking down, in the environment or in the body. And that is the basis for the Forever Chemicals nickname. PFOA, perfluorooctanoic acid, is one specific compound within that family. It was historically used as a manufacturing aid in producing PTFE, helping the coating apply smoothly during manufacturing. It was not necessarily part of the finished coating in large quantities, but evidence of its persistence and its potential health effects kept mounting. So major manufacturers phased it out as a processing aid under EPA stewardship programs between the mid-2000s and 2015. That phase-out is real, and it matters. But chemically, it is the removal of one specific tree from a forest of more than 10,000. PTFE itself is the actual non-stick coating, the one most people know as Teflon. It is still a fluoropolymer. It is still a member of the broader PFAS family, and removing PFOA from the manufacturing process does not remove PTFE from the pan. I want to be precise about what I am claiming here, because this is not an accusation of fraud. PFOA-free is a legally accurate statement when it is true. The issue is not the words. The issue is what the human brain does with them. It is a reassuring, chemical-sounding claim, and most people do not have the background to fully parse it. So here's what happens. When a label says PFOA-free, most people make a reasonable inference. They infer that the broader category of concerning chemicals has been addressed. But that inference is not what the label actually states. The label states one specific, narrower fact. It names one chemical. It says nothing about the rest of the family. A physician who has written extensively on this exact gap put it plainly. PFOA-free is a 2006 answer, and it is being used to address a 2026 question. Think about what that means. The claim was genuinely meaningful at one point. That was when PFOA itself was the primary chemical of concern in cookware. But the science moved. Today, PTFE itself is understood as part of the same broader chemical family. So that same claim now addresses a narrower slice of the actual concern. And that slice is increasingly outdated. This pattern is not unique to PFOA. The same dynamic applies to the word ceramic. Most cookware marketed as ceramic nonstick is not solid ceramic. The cooking surface is not made of ceramic material. It usually means a ceramic-based coating has been applied over a metal pan. Now that is a genuinely different formulation from PTFE. It is usually free of fluorine entirely. So ceramic can be good news. But here is the catch. The word ceramic by itself, with no further specification, tells you almost nothing about whether fluoropolymers are present. And manufacturers are not required to specify the coating chemistry. Choosing a particular marketing word does not obligate them to explain it. This is where the story moves from labeling theory to direct measurement. And this is the part that should change how you read a cookware box going forward. Consumer Reports ran a direct test. They did not rely on manufacturer claims at all. They screened pans for PFAS directly using laboratory analysis. 2 pans marketed as ceramic contained none of the 96 PFAS compounds they tested for. A genuinely PFAS-free ceramic coating is a real achievable product, not just a marketing fantasy, but a separate pan coated in standard PTFE tested positive. It showed measurable PFOA and several other PFAS compounds, and that is despite PFOA having been phased out as an intentional additive years earlier. Their chemist's explanation was specific. Even cookware made without PFOA as a deliberate ingredient can still contain trace PFOA. It shows up as a byproduct of how PTFE itself is produced. And that is precisely why Consumer Reports stopped highlighting PFOA-free as a meaningful distinction in their own cookware ratings altogether. A separate investigation by the Ecology Center tested a broader sample. 14 cooking pans and 10 baking pans, purchased across a range of retailers, from discount stores to major name brands. 79% of the cooking pans were coated in PTFE, so were 20% of the baking pans, and the researchers found something that matters just as much. Packaging claims and omissions on some products could mislead a buyer. A person could purchase a PTFE-coated pan while believing they were buying something else entirely. Marketing claims are one thing. Government bans are a different category of evidence entirely. A ban requires a regulatory body to formally conclude that a risk is serious enough to restrict commerce over. Minnesota became the first state to ban the sale of PFAS-coated nonstick cookware. That ban took effect at the start of 2025. Colorado and Maine followed with their own bans, beginning in January of 2026. Connecticut and Vermont have already passed similar legislation, with effective dates extending into 2028. And additional states have related restriction bills moving through their legislatures right now. This is not a single state acting in isolation. It is a pattern replicating across multiple independent legislatures. Each one is reaching a similar conclusion through its own separate regulatory review. The international picture adds another layer. The European Union has been developing a broader PFAS restriction, covering more than 10,000 compounds, including non-stick cookware coatings. Cookware was originally included in an early draft of a related French restriction. Then it was removed, specifically after lobbying from major cookware manufacturers. Environmental groups have criticized that carve-out. They call it a significant gap rather than evidence of safety. The chemical was not declared safe. In the language of policy, it was temporarily exempted, while the broader restriction moves forward elsewhere. Think about what that combination means. Multiple governments, through independent processes, reaching a similar conclusion about one product category. That is a meaningfully different signal than a single advocacy report or a single study. It does not prove harm at any specific exposure level, but it does indicate that bodies tasked with weighing risk for entire populations have judged the evidence sufficient to act on. There is a specific failure mode for PTFE cookware that deserves more attention than it gets. It is not about gradual chemical leaching, it is acute. And it has a name. PTFE is genuinely stable under normal cooking conditions, the temperatures you would use for searing meat or sautéing vegetables. But when a PTFE-coated pan is significantly overheated, the coating can begin to break down and release fumes. That happens when it is left empty on high heat or pushed well beyond recommended temperatures. This phenomenon has an established medical name: polymer fume fever. It is a flu-like illness with chills, headache, and chest tightness. It has been documented in people exposed to overheated PTFE fumes and generally resolves within a day or two. But the same fumes have been documented as lethal to pet birds. A bird's respiratory system is dramatically more sensitive to airborne toxins than ours. That is why bird owners are specifically warned never to use nonstick cookware in a home with birds present. This matters because it tells you the risk profile is not purely about cumulative low-level exposure over years. There's also a distinct, faster-acting failure mode tied to a common kitchen mistake: leaving an empty nonstick pan on high heat. Most people have done that at some point without ever connecting it to this chemistry. None of this requires panic. It does not require replacing every pan in your kitchen this afternoon. It requires two things: reading labels more precisely and making a small number of specific decisions. The first change is the label check itself, and you can do it in the next 60 seconds. Stop looking for PFOA-free as your safety signal. Look instead for PTFE-free or fluoropolymer-free, stated explicitly. If a product only advertises PFOA-free without separately confirming it is also PTFE-free, treat that as incomplete information, not a clean bill of health. That is exactly what the Consumer Reports findings suggest you should do. The second change is material selection for anything you are buying new. Stainless steel, cast iron, and carbon steel contain no fluoropolymer coating at all. That is true by their basic material nature, not because of a marketing claim. If you want nonstick convenience specifically, look for cookware that explicitly states a fluorine-free ceramic coating. And treat unspecified ceramic claims with the same skepticism you would apply to an unspecified PFOA-free claim. The third change addresses the cookware you already own. If you have PTFE-coated pans in your kitchen right now, the most important behavior is avoiding the overheating scenario I just described. Never preheat an empty nonstick pan on high heat. And retire any pan with visibly scratched, flaking, or peeling coating immediately. Damaged coating is a chemical exposure concern. It is also a sign the coating is no longer functioning as intended. The fourth change is for when you want certainty rather than label interpretation. Check whether your specific cookware brand has published independent third-party PFAS testing, the way Consumer Reports did. A growing number of manufacturers now publish this kind of testing directly, especially newer brands built around the PFAS-free positioning. And published testing is a meaningfully stronger claim than a label alone. Here's the detail that ties this entire video together, and it is worth remembering well beyond cookware. The pattern you just learned is a technically accurate claim about one specific chemical, used to imply safety from an entire chemical family. That pattern is not unique to nonstick pans. It shows up across the personal care and consumer product world constantly, wherever an older, already banned ingredient gets called out by name, while its close chemical relatives go unmentioned. So once you understand that PFOA-free and PFAS-free are not the same claim, you have a transferable skill, not just a cookware fact. The next time you see a reassuringly specific chemical-free label on anything, you now know what to ask. Which specific chemical is being named, and what else might be quietly standing right next to it? Go look at that pan again. Read the label exactly as it is written. Not as you have probably been reading it for years. If it says PFOA-free and nothing more specific, it tells you about one chemical's absence, not the whole family's. But if it explicitly states PTFE-free or fluoropolymer-free, that is the stronger, more complete claim you are actually looking for. The difference between those two labels is the entire content of this video, and it took about a minute to check. This channel exists to take the everyday objects in your kitchen and read their actual evidence, not their marketing, as closely as the available research allows. If that is useful to you, subscribing is the most direct way to get the next one. I will see you in the next video.